Tonight, politics and the law intersect. We take a look at Donald Trump's big victory in Nevada and how some big legal issues could impact the race to the White House. Two of those are the president's plan to close Gitmo and the replacement for Antonin Scalia. We've got a panel of attorneys to hash it all out. Then, the Sandy Hook lawsuit that has gun makers nervous. If the victims' families win, this could be a sea change as it relates to the entire gun manufacturing industry as well as the NRA. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you for joining us this evening. Well, the Donald does it again.
This is a great place. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great evening. We will be celebrating for a long time tonight. Have a good time. Have a good time.
Only in America. Donald Trump with a double-digit win in the Nevada caucuses last night. This Trump's third straight victory. Marco Rubio coming in a distant second in Nevada. Ted Cruz even further behind in third. Now those three guys are gearing up for Super Tuesday, which is now only 6 days away. People in a dozen states will be heading to the polls, and this could be make or break for everybody not named Trump. We'll be back on the political beat tomorrow, but tonight is all about the law. And we start this evening with a couple cases that the presidential candidates are keeping a very close eye on. Now I'm talking about President Obama's decision to close Gitmo. That could move several detainees to the United States and also have legal ramifications as to how their cases in fact will be handled. 10 prisoners have already been convicted of terror charges or have had cases pending before the military tribunals. That leaves 46 with uncertain fates. Now, then there is that battle between privacy and security that is playing out in the Apple case. The FBI trying to get Apple to unlock the iPhone of one of the San Bernardino shooters. Apple, though, refusing, saying this would cause a ripple effect and enable states and cities everywhere to violate people's privacy. And that one phone is not the only one that officials want to crack. And Apple says it wants to protect. Now, to dig deeper into both of those stories, we wanted to talk to an expert on national security and civil liberties, Karen Greenberg. She's the director of the Center on National Security at the Fordham University Law School. I'll just start, Karen, with a broad question. 12 plus years later, has Guantanamo worked? When we look back at it, did it accomplish its goal, or, as the president and others have maintained, it served as the best recruitment tool for terrorists globally that there is?
You know, it's a wonderful question because it brings to mind what was the original purpose of Guantanamo. The original purpose of Guantanamo was to take individuals off the active battlefield in Afghanistan and get information from them about bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, Mullah Omar, and some strategic and tactical information that would be helpful in the war on terror. It morphed into a very different kind of holding facility. So did it accomplish what it initially set out to? In part, I'm not sure how much information we ever got out of the Guantanamo detainees, but mostly it's become a legacy of how the United States went wrong in the war on terror.
In your reporting, did you find that when it was set up, and obviously we have to put this in the context of what it was like in the aftermath of 9/11, but nonetheless, that no one ever had in their wildest imaginations that more than a dozen years later, we'd still have these guys there. There still never would have been formal charges, and we still wouldn't have any idea on what the final chapter of this place would have been. Did the people, even if you go back to the Bush administration, did they think that in 2016 we'd still be talking about this?
Absolutely not. When pressed, there were often conversations between the military on the ground and Secretary of Defense at the time, Donald Rumsfeld, and they talked about Rumsfeld wanting to think it would be closed within 6 months. The military, the commander at the time saying, no, this could be open after both of us retire. Lo and behold, they've moved on, but Guantanamo has stayed. As to what it was for in terms of, you're talking about military commissions, originally the military thought that they would be finding a courthouse, starting the process of commissions, and that there would be a legal process set up for those kinds of trials. But lo and behold, they were never given any directives to find a courthouse, begin to do the things that would turn it into a military commissions facility early on in the process. That came much later.
And Karen, I preface this next question with obviously the politics will be the overriding consideration going forward. And we've already heard, in effect, that this thing's dead on arrival by the Republicans on Capitol Hill. Nonetheless, from a legal, practical level, if you waved the magic wand and the president got what he wanted, is the issue, if you want to prioritize it, go ahead, that their status, that these guys are enemy combatants, or B, you've already got U.S. law that bans the transfer of inmates to U.S. facilities? Is it due process questions in terms of, what kind of evidence would they actually have available? What court of law would they be able to be tried in? I mean, I could go on and on. You probably have forgotten more than I know on this, but what's in the pecking order, the biggest headaches, even if they were able politically to try and shut the place down, send the ones abroad that they wanted to, but then go to supermaxes here with the rest of them?
The biggest problem politically has to do, I just want to address that to start with. The biggest problem politically has to do with with Congress banning their transfer to the United States. Beyond that, we'll find out what the problems are, because as you referenced in your questions, there is a question of, can we even keep somebody in indefinite detention in the United States in the way we have at Guantanamo? But I think President Obama's plan is to try the 10 who have already been tried, either here in federal prison, in federal courts, or if he has to at Guantanamo, to whittle down the number at Guantanamo to a handful or more of individuals, which is not something people are thinking about now, and then to address each one of those cases individually and to see where it can go. Perhaps there could be plea deals. Perhaps they could go through some kind of legal process. But you're right. There are going to be more problems when they're here in terms of these kinds of specifics. But the overall optics of having Guantanamo open this long into the future will at least be ended.
All right, let's pivot, Karen, to the questions of Apple and privacy, as well as also protection. From your vantage point, with what Comey's looking for and what Apple has resisted so far, are the feds really looking for a backdoor in your estimation, or, is this really a fair request that Apple is really just looking to cover themselves from a proprietary standpoint?
I think it's both. I think this is both a specific conflict and a proxy conflict. For a long time, the FBI, led by Director Comey, has wanted to ban encryption in the name of national security and even security against criminal activity of a certain order. And Apple wants to keep its profits up, wants to brand itself as a company that can protect privacy. The biggest issue here is really whether or not there can be any kind of compromise between these two sides, if there's any middle ground at all. And right now, we're not seeing that. We'll have to wait until see when Apple's papers are filed, I believe on this coming Friday, to see on what grounds they're going to continue to dig their heels into the ground and hold to their stance, or if there actually is a way that they can move back and address the issue of this one phone. And I think a lot of it hinges on that.
There was an interesting supporter of the FBI, albeit in a qualified manner. That was Bill Gates, one of the few people from the tech industry who saw the Fed's perspective. And he said in part, quote, "This is a specific case where the government's asking for access to information. They're not asking for some general thing. They're asking for a particular case. It's no different than the question of should anyone ever have been able to tell the phone company to get information? Should anybody be able to get at bank records? Let's say the bank had tied a ribbon around the disk drive and said, 'Don't make me cut this ribbon because you'll make me cut it many times.' Is there any way to keep the genie in the bottle here, Karen, if in fact the court sees it the FBI's way?"
Well, this is where the technologists in the field become very important. Because if what Apple is saying, which is that the key to this one phone would be the key to all the phones, then Bill Gates is going to have to modify his position, because this is really about particularity, which is the basis of laws and the constitutional principles, for example, of the Fourth Amendment. Are they able to target an individual phone or are they not? And the court's going to have to school itself an awful lot in the actual technology that exists and that can exist in the future before they make a decision. The issue here for everybody involved is the precedential nature of this decision, not the decision just in this case, but what it's going to mean here and what's going to mean in terms of this particular phone, but also what it's going to mean in the future in terms of government technology relationships.
Karen, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, a lot to digest there. When we come back on the other side of the break, we'll bring in the panel of attorneys to discuss the legal ramifications of Guantanamo Bay.